What's up, and welcome to the Crude Oil Podcast, a weekly uncensored Edmonton Oilers podcast with your hosts, Sean and Greg. All right, Game 3 last night. We're sitting here a little bit panicked. Well, I'm sitting here a little bit panicky. I don't know how you're feeling, Sean.
I almost feel like I've accepted our fate at this point. Not that I want to give up, because I don't think it's over, but I do feel more at peace with the fact that we are where we are now. Last night, not so much. I felt the same as you, but I've kind of had the morning to figure it out.
Yeah, it sucks because you want to see this miracle come together, and it's just I think you still have to take a step back. And it's funny, I had this whole surrender moment when I got on the plane last night before the game ended, and it kind of when I opened up my phone to see what ended up happening because the Wi-Fi was shit. I was like, you know what? I can't be upset because this team has gone way farther than I thought they'd be. And so from here on out, I just think it's gravy. I think every game we get to see, we should be feeling lucky. That's just my glass half full thoughts right now.
I mean, what other way is there to look at it without just being mad, right? And I'm not going to get upset until we lose. And even then, I try not to let the emotions take a hold of me and try to think of all the positives that come out of it. And yeah, I think there are a few positives, but unfortunately, especially in games 1 and 2, there weren't a whole lot of them.
Yeah. So I think we need to definitely dive in, find some of those, the good things, the bad things. Obviously, there's a lot of controversial things. We'll go through that. But just like to remind you guys, subscribe, follow, like all of our social media platforms, and yeah, feel free to dive in and send us any feedback. I know we got quite a bit of it. The one cool thing that I actually saw, I don't know if you saw this, Sean, but someone replied to one of our posts that says, "I can't wait to hear what your guys' take is on Monday." So that was kind of a cool response.
Like the take to everything that's been happening.
basically. But I'm actually gonna I wanted to do the plugs because I wanted to expand the Reddit side to you, because I know you've been doing a lot of work trying to market things and get people involved, and I am not a Reddit guy. And so when I signed on and I saw all the good feedback that we've been getting, kudos to you for that work for sure, and for everyone for engaging there.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the subreddit for actually letting me post on there. And just a PSA to everybody who's listening, Greg is recording this from where in the UK?
I'm in London. It is 10 p.m. We landed this morning. I'm running on about 3 hours of sleep in the last 2 days. So yeah, it's a good point. The audio is probably not as great as we would hope it to be, but yeah, just we need to get this this podcast out because there's so much going on.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, just like Greg said, like, comment, subscribe, etc. Leave us your opinion on Twitter if you feel like it, and we would love to share it. And if you have any questions, let us know.
Yeah. Let's dive into the Shinny game 1 that we saw. You and I actually sat down and watched this game together.
Yeah, that was a roller coaster of happiness and anger at the same time. It was very interesting to watch, to say the least.
Oh, I know. It started right off the bat. You get that good note, the good start with Kane getting the goal on the breakaway. And I mean, I used so many freaking times, this team just loves to score, and then I don't know if they get overindulged with, that great feeling and then forget to start playing hockey. But the second goal they answered on, or to tie it, was right after, was it not?
Yeah, it was within 30 to 40 seconds, I believe. That's been a very common thing in this series, is that once either Edmonton scores or the Avalanche score, there tends to be a goal very quickly going the other way against Edmonton.
Yeah, it was a tough roller coaster of emotion, like you mentioned. Of course, Colorado responding again right afterwards, making it 2-1. And then Hyman got that late bingo at the end of the first period, and then we saw it again, man. Like, so
Talking about game one just gets me just like a lot of breathing, just like ugh, and sighing and being disappointed. There was no such thing as defense in that game.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So, we haven't had a chance to discuss this. We might as well just throw the floor open. Do you want to discuss some of the controversial things like the Makar goal right now as we go through things, or we want to say some of those stuff to the end?
Well, let's just quickly talk about that because I think
Sure.
everybody's gotten that out of their system at this point.
Sure.
And I've looked at the rule book. I've read all the takes that are out there. Yes, I understand that it, by the letter of the law, it was a goal. But I think that goes to show that the law is a bunch of fucking horseshit and they need to do something to make it more clear, to make it more consistent. Like I know, like I had a buddy, I had a long conversation with him. He's a Avs fan, and obviously he's biased to want to consider that a goal.
Right.
And I think it comes down to like it's just the fact that offside replays are the amount of time I feel you can spend on it is just absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Like we sat there for 10 minutes. I remember me and you were watching that and being like, oh yeah, like that's no goal easily. You watch that at full speed. Nobody thinks that's a goal. You see where the ref is. He's on the far side blue line. He should call that an offside 10 times out of 10. But because he fucked up, they replay it and he gets lucky. And it turns out that Makar didn't touch the puck by like a millisecond.
It was like the perfect storm for that to count too. Like the puck crossed the line. He didn't touch the puck. Was it Nichushkin that was coming back onside? He's tied up before that, like Makar's feet even entered the zone. It's just, I'm with you. I was probably disagreeing and pissed off till 1 a.m. that night. But at the end of the day, like I agree with you too. It's, if you look at the rule book, it's a goal.
It just sucks that that's the case because like I looked at the rule book for probably a good hour or two the next day, like looking at like what defines control, what defines possession, like how does offside exactly work and all of these things. And now my favorite thing was people talking about McDavid and when he's stick handling is like McDavid doesn't have possession of the puck there. He actually had like 200 micro possessions.
No kidding.
It's just like it adds gray area to other rules. And like I know that it's not gray on this offside thing because like it specifically says touch, but I think that's stupid because there's another rule that specifically talks about possession and offside and how you can skate backwards over the line as long as you have possession and it's not offside. So I don't really understand the difference between those two in that sense. It just seems kind of dumb.
Yeah, it feels like you're causing too many questions on the actual like rules itself. So
exactly.
I don't know. I don't think the Oilers did any favors. Like, yeah, I get it. First off, like you can't doubt the fact that that was a fucking unbelievable shot from Makar for one.
Of course.
And for two, like you're gonna make the challenge. You lose the challenge. You knew that you were going to go down with a delay game penalty, but the onus is on the team to kill that penalty. I don't buy any excuse that when a referee hands your team a penalty, that if you kill it off or you can't kill it off, that it's all the referee's fault. Like at the end of the day, you need to learn to turn that around and shut that out.
Yeah, well, like I think in this game, actually, Edmonton was quite good about like ignoring bad calls and ignoring Colorado goals and not letting them get to them too much. Just because they did come back to this game and make it 7-6. Like, I don't think we really need to cover each goal because like most of them, I think were like odd man rushes or just bad giveaways in the defensive zone. I would blame like our defense on, I would say 90% of the goals. Maybe one of those goals would probably be more goaltending than anything else, but everything else was defense. And the same goes for Colorado. Like they had very piss poor defense on their end this game too. And I think everybody realized it. And it kind of reminded me exactly of game one against Calgary.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad we're not going to go through it. I was trying to pull up the actual goal by goal summary, but I'm using a Wi-Fi that's fucking worse than dial up in one of the biggest country or cities in this world. So, I do know the other scores of the other games. I just didn't have to memorize the 14 goals in game one, but yeah, it was nuts. It was crazy. So I don't. It was one of those games too where the Oilers kept sneaking back to your point about Calgary in game one, where it was like, oh shit, like we might have a game soon, but I don't know. Your spell eventually runs dry. And then I found towards the end, that's where like shit started to kind of go off the handle. I found that the Oilers have been doing this a lot lately when they get down in games, especially in a blowout game like this, or specifically in game two, like they start mixing it up and getting a little chippy. And like I understand you want to get under the opponent's skin. There might be things coming your way, but I think there's certain players that it really throws off their game to the point that that's all they're looking for moving forward. Like
And I'm
I
guessing you're
think
talking about like a Nurse, a Kane, a Cassian, where that's
exactly,
all they think about.
exactly, yeah. So
Well, like
I
I'm fine with the chippiness, honestly. I don't think it's
mhm,
that big of a deal. The thing I really hate about, especially we'll get into it about game two, is that they do it after they're pretty much out of the game. And like before that,
yeah,
they're not being chippy. They're barely throwing hits. They're not scrumming it after the whistle. And then all of a sudden they're losing. Then they start to get into Colorado's heads. And I'm like, where is this in the first like 10 minutes of the game where we're throwing hits at Makar or getting at his grill? So he's thinking about it all game. We do it at the end of the game where he's like, yeah, I just need to not do anything because we've already won. So it doesn't matter.
mhm. Well, okay, so I'm having a little bit of lack of sleep here. Was the Connor McDavid blow up in the first period? Was that in game two or game three,
What
where
do you mean by the Connor McDavid blowout?
he knocked someone like clean out,
Oh,
like right in front of the benches?
that was game two. That was against
Yeah,
Cogliano right in the first period, I believe. That was a good hit by him.
yeah, that's the shit you need. Like to your point.
Oh, exactly. And like I think McDavid brings that in spades. Like, and he has this entire playoffs. Look against Calgary, he was a wrecking ball, and he's top 10 in hits in the playoffs this year. But like, I know that's great for him, but I think that's less of a positive for McDavid, more of a negative for the other like bigger players on Edmonton. That's like the most noticeable stuff that's happening is McDavid having to do everything. Like, what the hell is like Cassian and Kane doing?
Yeah,
Like,
I
I don't want
couldn't
to sit
agree
here and
more.
point fingers at everybody because I think this has been a kind of a team debacle. But
Mhm.
like, it's just like, come on, we know you can bring it. Why aren't you? It's just very frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that point. Jumping into game two, I thought it was fairly like evenly matched up uh, for the first period, and then uh, like I swear to God, if you went, to the bathroom in the middle of the second period, then you come back and it's 3-0. Like
Oh, I love
this
reading
team
those
just find,
comments on Twitter's. It's just or on
oh
Twitter is like people be like, I just like had to go like take my dog out to the bathroom, came back and it's 3-0. What's going on?
yeah, like like you, I have a buddy that's an As fan, and he's like, I came back, I saw it was 3-0. I went back to what I was doing because I didn't want to like watch the game. It's like, yeah,
You don't want to
that
jinx it
makes
now.
sense. Yeah. So, a couple things I just wanted to bring out in that game because I thought the Oilers were flat. I just they weren't playing their style of hockey, and I think as as bad as I think the Oilers have played, I think Colorado's just been really solid.
Well,
Um,
especially in this second game, Colorado was just good.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
especially in the second and third period, even outside of those 2 minutes, they were playing fantastic. Like, Edmonton didn't get any chances, really. I can't even think off the top of my head in that game, really. I think it was Puljujarvi who had like the wide open shot that he sent 2 feet over the net. But besides that, there wasn't any like me standing up in my chair, like ready to cheer because I think it's a goal moment.
yeah. I would agree. Eh, the only kind of downside that I found, I feel like the Oilers might be getting tired. You kind of gave a precursor to me earlier about something you want to chat about a little bit later, but I think the Oilers are making tired mistakes. Um,
Well,
s-
that I
but
can understand physically tired mistakes, but it seems like they're making mentally tired mistakes.
that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
It's
That's what I mean.
like the
Sorry.
amount of times I've seen them do like high off the board, like do a high chip off the glass out of the zone when they're under virtually no pressure. Or like I think it was even in the last game last night. Nurse took that delay of game penalty where he had like barely any pressure from a single Avs player, and he just sends it like delay of game far side out of the rink. I'm just like,
That was in the
why?
neutral zone, right?
Well, it
Like
was
it was
in the
almost like,
defensive zone because it was a delay game penalty,
oh,
but
but it went like opposite side to the opposite
oh yeah, it was like
blue
opposite
line
blue
essentially,
line.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
Ugh.
like it's just these like mental lapses that they're making. Like I know like let's just talk about this now. This game, I think especially, a lot of people have been, let's just say, down on Nurse for lack of a better term, besides people wanting to literally lynch him in the streets for how he's been playing. But like I think obviously he is injured. I don't think anybody's
Yeah.
going to sit here and argue with that because
Mhm.
I've seen what he can bring this year throughout the regular season before he was hurt. There's plays where he would back check, like a guy would have a breakaway, he could fly in on the back check and just steal the puck away, kind of like Mcleod did, I think, in this game to McDavid. And he would do it like consistently and effectively. But it seems like maybe his injury is occupying his mind, and that is causing him to make these mental errors. Like obviously his body can't keep up, but his brain just seems to not be there. I don't know if this is like a tools and toolbox situation, kind of like a
Yeah.
Puljujarvi, where I think a lot of people would say that he lacks the toolbox. But
Mhm.
I don't know.
No,
I don't want to tear him apart.
I know what you mean. It kind of sucked because yeah, jumping into game three, the Oilers get off to the quick hop with McDavid. Great shot, by the way. That looked like he put 30% on it. But the 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 response, like you mentioned, that Colorado had at the end of the period, that was the one that went off of Nurse and in, right?
Yeah, like right. Sorry, we're on game three, right? The one where
Yeah,
Nurse like tipped it right in to that
yeah.
just short side on Smith when he was really not prepared for that at all because it was going like almost out of the zone.
I thought that was just the perfect combination of the way the Oilers have played the last couple weeks.
I saw
Just
that
in
play
terms of
and
the
I audibly laughed because I was like, "Oh, that's fucking." Of course, it's Nurse who does that. Of course.
yeah, yeah. Just in their defensive end, yeah, I just thought it was very telling of the way things have been going. But um, I'm gonna let you do a lot of the impulse stuff that happened in between. I was standing. It's funny. I was in Halifax, and if anyone who's been to the Halifax terminal, there's only one bar in there, and it was packed to the nines because everyone else is trying to leave. And I literally sat on the floor in front of the TV with my legs crossed watching the first period and some old guys sitting beside me cheering for Edmonton. It was one of those like nothing else really matters right now. But eventually got called, and I think the last thing I saw was at the start of the second when they started getting things going, and I just saw the first update with the goal before I lost service for everything. So hopefully, Sean, you can fill it in. I've watched some of the replays and stuff, and but how would you describe the Oilers game kind of after that 2-1?
Well, like I think we should quickly just cover the first period in a little bit of detail because
Sure,
there was some
sure,
big moments in that period. Like it was
that's
awesome
true.
to see Edmonton to get off to that huge start. That McDavid goal was like vintage McDavid and vintage Hyman too. That was like crazy amounts of work on the boards to somehow get that to him. I don't even know how he saw McDavid to send that to him to get him like hit him with speed there to get him that break.
Yeah.
That was great. And then obviously there's the controversial, not so controversial Kane hit on Kadri, where Kadri's out for the series now. Kane's currently having a
Oh, he's out.
hearing. He's out for the series. They announced it as he's done potentially for the playoffs as a whole too. I think he broke his arm.
Okay. Yeah, because I heard he left the arena in a cast, but I
Yeah.
didn't know if that was like a soft cast or what. But okay.
Yeah, at a minimum, I know he's out for the series. And then, yeah, Kane's having his hearing probably as we speak. Who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky and they'll drop the news live while we're doing this. But anyway, quickly before we move on, though, what's your take on that? Do you think he's going to get suspended? Like, what do you think?
I was shocked that Kane was allowed to stay in that game.
I was
I
confused, honestly.
yeah, we'll get into the whole process too, because I didn't know you could review it and also call a 5, but not kick a guy out. Like, is it because there
Yeah.
wasn't an injury, but there was an injury? So like, did they
So
provide any clarity on that?
I believe what I found was essentially that under the rule of issuing a game misconduct, there has to be some sort of impact to the head or face. And since I think it was his arm on the boarding, they couldn't give him like a game, or it's up to their discretion whether or not they want to. And I guess they decided not to, which I'm still surprised by the way, going through this game that like Landeskog or something didn't try to beat the shit out of Kane. Like that kind of seemed a little chicken shit from Colorado that they didn't stand up for their teammate and try to fight him. I never noticed any of that throughout the game. But
yeah,
that's kind of been Colorado's MO in this series, is that they haven't let anything get to them at all. Like, especially that chippiness at the end of games from Edmonton. Like, Colorado's just sat there and taken it and hasn't even reacted in the slightest.
Yeah. I think that's ultimately what keeps your head on your own game. But what was your take on the hit?
Well, obviously, I think like 5-minute major, I'm not arguing with that. I think he probably should have been for like, I know people hate the term game management, but to keep that game under control, and luckily for the refs, it didn't get out of control. They should have probably kicked Kane out of the game. That kind of blew my mind that they didn't. And then, well, I hope, obviously, as my biased opinion, he doesn't get suspended. I will not be surprised if he gets a game. Like, but I would hope that it's only one game, because I've seen far worse stuff that's gotten like a fine than compared to that.
Or
I think it was just unfortunate timing. But
how about the next controversial thing that wasn't even called, but the dirty slew foot from McKinnon on Draisaitl?
My favorite part about that is I think it was Elliot in the intermission. He's sitting there talking about like what defines a slew foot, and part of it is he's like, he didn't take his elbow and drive him backwards over his foot. And then you watch the replay and it almost looks clear as day that he takes his elbow and drives him back over his foot. Like, I don't know what more could constitute a slew foot. And to me, the fact that that's not even getting a fine, let alone a hearing of some sort, because Draisaitl's been slew footed 3 times these playoffs. And I know a lot of other non-Oilers fans like to make fun of Draisaitl and call him dirty because he's canned a couple guys, which I'm not going to defend him for that shit. But that doesn't mean that he should get slew-footed and that shit should just get swept under the rug. It's kind of horseshit to me. And I'm so tired of the Department of Player Safety, in air quotes, for even having that name in the first place. It's hypocritical when they seem to not give a shit about players in the slightest.
Yeah, it's one of those series too where I think it's bullshit is you don't hear the Oilers coming out and saying like a whole lot of things about it, but you have Gabriel Landeskog coming out talking about the Kadri thing, saying how this isn't a play that shouldn't be a hockey. Yes, we all know that. I understand you're the captain of the Colorado Avalanche. You should also not be like head hunting guys who aren't even with Yamamoto in game 2. Like,
we didn't even talk about that. What was your thoughts on that hit too? I thought that deserved something too.
Yeah, okay. So my initial thoughts, he went for his head, dirty hit, whatever. Even if it had to at least be an interference call. Yamamoto was 10 feet away from the puck. I understand what a suicide pass is, but he didn't even touch the puck.
That's true. I didn't even remember watching it, but like thinking back to it, or not watching, but remembering the fact that it wouldn't be interference. And I would agree with that it looked to be that. And honestly, I've seen so many GIFs and stuff where people show the hit where it's like from him approaching and then the first like couple milliseconds of him hitting Yamamoto. Yeah. All you see is Yamamoto's head move. So clearly that means that would mean that it's the principal point of contact. So exactly, I don't understand what angle, like maybe the other angles make it look clean, but like if you find one angle that it looks dirty, then I think it's dirty. It's like watching a goal. Like if you see an angle that it's in the net, then it's a goal. Like I don't really understand why they find all the angles that support that it's not a dirty hit, and then they see the one angle that it is a dirty hit, but they just ignore that because the other ones look fine.
Yeah,
it's just I don't want to talk about the refs and how they suck ass and how the NHL has sucked ass with any of this in general. Like, I still want to hear something from them to be like, our reffing is bad and we need to figure it out. We apologize for this. Like,
yeah.
Ugh.
I know.
So, yeah. And speaking of reffing... Oh, sorry, go ahead before I go on another tangent.
I was just going to wrap it up. I was like, I know I brought up the McKinnon thing, and I feel like now, just because I made one bad post about Nate McKinnon, that I have to announce that I don't hate people from the East Coast. I don't know how that fucking idiot from Twitter thought that, like, just because I said he embellishes something, that I don't like people from the East Coast. I was so close to like sending a picture right in front of the Cole Harbor sign that next day. Like, anyway,
I was
I
waiting.
digress.
You get off the plane and he's just sitting there like cracking his knuckles, waiting for you to get off the plane.
No shit. Nate McKinnon is one of my favorite players in the league. I just hate that he has to resort to like those kinds of things. But I hate the fact that Draisaitl spears people. It makes him take away from his talent. I don't. Anyways, I digress.
I don't know. But the thing I was going to quickly touch on is I know a lot of Oilers fans have been complaining about the reffing. And I do agree the reffing has been fucking god-awful. And I just refuse to believe that Colorado is this team full of saints that don't do anything wrong. Where the power plays in game 2, followed by game 3, can be 5-2 for Colorado, and then 7-2 for Colorado, including a 5-minute major. Like the major, I can't argue with. Let's not sit here and argue with that. But let's get rid of that. The penalties are still 6-2. So overall, in this series, the penalties are 13-6, or I guess 12-6 now, including the 5-minute major for Colorado. Colorado has been first in the league in drawing penalties for 5 years in a row. Like, I don't want to call that there's conspiracy or any of that bullshit because I think that's bullshit. But like, what is happening in this game that Edmonton is somehow taking twice as many penalties as Colorado? Like, I don't understand
Sean,
that.
I have to talk about this. Otherwise, I'm going to go insane sitting in my own room telling this to myself over and over. I need to put this thought out into the atmosphere. It's not me sitting with a tinfoil hat, just like being a controversial like conspiracy theorist. But I do think the NHL has a big boo-boo on their hands. They need to figure out the consistency with this fucking reffing. If you have any balls to add, like to air as much as you have for betting, and to have this much inconsistency with your reffing, you need to figure that shit out quick because it does not look good.
You know, that might be one of the few positive things that come out of this regulation of sports betting. Because there's going to be outcries from people. Like, say you bet on, let's just say hypothetically, you bet on Calgary to win the cup. And in that series against Edmonton, it was game 7 and they called that kick or whatever, or they missed a bad penalty. So then Edmonton beat Calgary and Calgary's out. Like, you have all these people who are going to lose their fucking minds and absolutely blast you on Twitter and just probably want to boycott you because you're reffing so bad. Like, I'm sure other sports deal with this all the time. And I want more transparency. I think refs should be held accountable. And like, I don't care if the NHL sits there and like, oh, we privately hold our refs accountable. And it's like, I don't give a shit. Like, you're a public league. I want to see what's going on. Like, if I see the players getting fines, I want to see the refs getting fines for making shit calls.
No shit. And you've got guys like Tim Peel who are out here on Twitter, like marketing their own fucking reffing school. Like,
did you see the tweet from Tim Peel last night after the Kane hit?
No.
He removed it because he put in all caps with an exclamation point was karma after Kadri got boarded and immediately deleted it. But a lot of people screenshotted before he deleted
it. I mean, that's just the pot calling the kettle black, hey?
Yeah. It's just like, God. I don't know. I'm not going to be that Oilers fan who sits here and says that's the reason we're losing because we have played poorly. But
I would completely, I know I brought that up. I do have to clarify that it's something that the NHL has to figure out. But I think there's a lot of dirty things from both sides that haven't been called. It's just the fact that it's not being evened up is the unfortunate thing. So I don't know where we left off before we jumped on this tangent. I think
we were recapping game 3 and we were just in the first period and then we talked about that hit. But I don't care about it being evened up even in penalties, but 2-1 is absurd. You can't tell me that's bullshit. Like, maybe a Colorado fan can tell me that's bullshit, but I feel like any unbiased fan can't sit here and say that's bullshit. It seems a little absurd to me. But once again, I digress as well. So I think the main reason Edmonton struggled in this game was just they didn't get the bounces. They were just unlucky. Like, let's look at the first Colorado goal, which was obviously that Nurse tip in, which sucked. And I can't even make sense of how that tipped that direction in the first place when it's going with momentum out of the zone to the far corner, and somehow Nurse tips it and it goes backwards the other direction and tips perfectly in right under Smith's arm. Like, obviously that sucks for Nurse. It sucks for Smith. It sucks for everybody. And I think we just need to move on and not worry too much about it. People are going to sit here and be like, what the fuck are you doing? But he's trying to break up the pass so it doesn't get across because there's a Colorado guy on the far side. Like, it's unlucky. There's nothing you can do. And then we come to the second period goal, which is Taves takes a shot from the point. It hits, I can't remember who in front. I think it hits an Oilers player because he blocks it. It bounced straight to Nichushkin, who with Bouchard between him and the net. It goes off Bouchard's skate after he shoots it and goes far side of the net. So Smith was sliding across to take the short side away, and then it goes far side instead. So, once again, absolute garbage fucking bounce, and we can't catch a break. Like, we had to fight for all of our goals. Like, they were tip-ins. They were just straight shots in for McDavid and Mcleod. So, any of these bounces, we weren't getting the lucky bounce garbage goals. Like, I don't know if that says more about Edmonton not playing properly, but I don't know about it. I don't want to sit here and argue that either. And then there was the JT Compher goal. I'm sure you've seen the highlight of that if you missed it while you were on the plane.
And I didn't see anything until I got back. Like, actually, the way I found out about all this is I read the only thing I had access to was that WestJet Connect thing, and it had a news article. It says Avalanche pushed the Oilers to the brink of elimination. It's like, for fuck's sakes. But I went back and I watched that, and it's amazing how hockey works in the playoffs. Like, if Bouchard's shot from the point wasn't, just an inch off, the Oilers have a lead.
Well, I think we go on to win at that point.
That's what I mean. But I have a couple thoughts just on the defense play from Bouchard. I know he was skating back and was at the end of a shift, and from what I saw, but I don't think he took the right angle on the puck. Your job as a defenseman is to keep yourself between or keep the puck between yourself and the boards. And I just think he was poorly managing that puck battle and allowed JT Compher just to completely outwork him.
Well, I think he just put himself into a poor position. Like, the puck's sitting there along the boards, right? And Bouchard is ahead of him and closer to the boards with JT Compher on his left as they're skating toward the puck. I don't know if he can see Compher skating faster than him. Is the play to ignore the puck and get into a better position by going on the other side of him and trying to get between him and the net? Or because he clearly got out muscled there. So I don't really know. He could have obviously played it better, but I don't know what could have worked better for him. That could have been somebody could have sat there and argued to be like, yeah, that's the right play.
Yeah. I can't imagine what you're feeling when you see a goal happen right after it looked like possession was in Colorado's entire, last few minutes before that. But that must have been pretty deflating.
Well, I think you could hear it in the crowd. The crowd went from cheering and getting excited again to just dead silent. I didn't hear a look out of the crowd for the rest of the game.
Yeah. The one thing I did watch, and I caught the last 5 minutes of the game, just rewatching how it all played out. But kudos to Mike Smith making that 2-on-1 save. 2 minutes left? That would be the wins out of your sails completely.
Yeah. Just a quick FYI. I apologize if Greg's mic doesn't sound great. Once again, he is in London and it is cutting in and out a little bit.
Am I?
I don't know if you have an extra window open on your browser or something that's making that happen. But yeah, Mike Smith kept them in the fucking game. People, even in this whole series, I will go down on my dying breath that Mike Smith is the only reason why we haven't got blown out in every single fucking game. Otherwise, the score should be 10-2 every game.
Mm-hmm.
He's made some 5 bell saves. we could talk about the conference save, how he should have had it. And I'm not going to sit here and say that he shouldn't have. And I would love him to have made that save to have kept us in the game, because Francouz made the save just prior to that on like McDavid on the back door. And if it was Kemper in net, that probably would have went in, because Francouz is a southpaw and had his glove on that side instead of his blocker. But
yeah,
all this, like, I see so much on Twitter where people are like sitting there and bitching and moaning about Mike Smith as the reason we lose. And I'm like, I don't understand where you're coming from with that. Like, you watch those goals, Smith had chance on one of them. So sure, but he didn't have any chance on the other two. Prior game, he didn't have a chance on, I think, 3 out of 4 of them. Like, I can't sit here and say that he's the reason we're losing, especially the shutout game prior. You can't expect to win with 0 fucking goals.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that. I mean, he hasn't been outstanding, but I would agree he's not the reason we're losing. It's, I think it comes down to poor defensive play, and we've seen it from Jump Street with the playoffs with the Oilers. So,
I think that's something they're going to really have to look at going into next year, is like, assuming we don't come back, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But,
so can I just quickly add something about this that I'm so sick and tired of seeing, is about how everyone's bitching about Nurse's contract. Yeah, I get he's making $9.5 million. You know who else is making $9.5 million? Charlie McAvoy. Like, it's a market value that you're paying these players for. You have to
it's like
overpay players.
Seth Jones, Charlie McAvoy, like Nurse, obviously. Like, I think there's just a kind of a cap on defensive salaries around like 10 million would be the max. But like, all the top probably 30 guys in the league would sit between the $8.5 to $10 million zone. So I would say at like most, because he's our number one defenseman, no other defenseman is going to come here and sign that contract. He's probably, if anything, he's maybe overpaid like $1 million of that money. And people keep talking about this, and he's not even earning that money yet. It doesn't start till next year. So it's moot.
Shit.
So let's see what he can bring next year. Yeah. Like, there's like, I don't want to sit here and be a Nurse apologist because he's been not great. But at the same time, you have to consider the factors in this game, which is the fact that he's injured and he's not playing right. And in all honesty, he's probably being overplayed and in the wrong situations, which I will get to later.
Yes, you will. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like it. Right now is kind of a tough time to evaluate what a guy is paid for their entire year, especially considering how deep we are into the playoffs and like injuries all occurred. I digress. The Oilers can't find a way to win Game 3, and now we sit on the brink of elimination, heading into a Game 4 at home. I'm always a never say never guy, but I think the Oilers have to win one game tomorrow. That's it. That's all I got to do. One game.
Well, we have to sit here and take it one game at a time. We can't be sitting here and be like, let's think Game 5 when we're back in Colorado. How are we going to win that game? No, don't think about that. Think about how the fuck you're going to win tomorrow and what we need to do that. And I think the whole team needs to sit there and really have like an internal discussion about what's going to need to happen, because nobody's really, I can't sit here and say like a specific player has played great. The only one I can think of off the top of my head is Ryan Mcleod, which once again, I will get to later. But
you must be shitty at poker, hey, Sean?
Not the best.
Yeah, just showing your hand. Anyway.
Yeah, so I'm better at blackjack. Let's just say that.
Okay. I just had to bug you about that. Yeah, so we find ourselves at kind of do or die, and what, if anything, do the Oilers have to do right off the hop in Game 4?
Well, we have to, like, obviously, I've said it a million times this fucking playoffs. We have to come out and play a strong game. We did that in the last game, but then Kane went and boarded Kadri and took the wins out of our sails, of the momentum, of the crowd, of everything. We killed off the penalties, and then as soon as we did, we got a shitty bounce and Nikushkin scored. Like, it just sucks that this team can't catch a break even when they're playing well. And like, they need to find a way though to play well in spite of what's going on around them. Like, you have to beat the hockey gods. You have to play hard and chippy and like get pucks to the net, make sure there's traffic in front. The amount of times I've seen like Barry take a shot and Hyman standing 6 feet to the left with his stick trying to tip it rather than standing in front of the goalie's eyes is just like, it's maddening to watch. But they need to play that way to win and beat this team. Like, I think they can match the skill of Colorado, especially on forward, but they can't match the defensive skill that team's bringing. So they need to be chippy and be better than them in some other regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Kane kind of mentioned it before. He said we have different physical elements of our game that we need to bring, and we need to start doing it. But like, I mean, talk is cheap at this point. Like, they just.
Oh yeah, I don't care what they sit there and talk about. Like, oh, we did this well. We just need to do that more. Like, I don't care what you have to say. Like, let your play show. Like, I want them to sit there and be like, we'll let our play show like how we're going to approach the rest of the series. Like, we're not going to sit here and talk about what we did well, what we're going to need to do. Like, just go out and fucking do it. Go and play well and win. I don't think it's that hard for these players who are veterans for anywhere from 1 to 15 to almost 20 years for like a Duncan Keith and Mike Smith. Like, these guys have been there, done that. They know the way they need to play. Just fucking do it. Yeah.
So I've got one question heading into game 4, just considering everything. Colorado's down. Who knows if Kemper comes back? It sounds like he was skating, but he was only taking lower body shots. So he could be out. You now have Kadri out. The Oilers, though, they have Yamamoto gone. I think he's still unknown for game 4, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, and so if we have the potential of having Kane gone, do you know what question I'm about to ask you? Is it time, Sean? Is it final time?
Is it Holloway time?
Is it Holloway time?
I will say yes. And I will be extremely disappointed if Kane gets suspended and Holloway is not in the lineup. Because I don't want to see them bump fucking Archibald up into the top 9. They've already put Cassian up there, and I'm not necessarily happy about that in the first place. Like, I thought they were going to do something else, but I want to see Holloway play.
Yeah, I think you, along with probably 95% of all Oilers Nation, just everybody didn't really love what was happening. And it's weird too, like with the last minute shuffle with Malone coming in. I'm not saying that was a bad thing. I know a lot of people really like his game, but I think at this point too, like everything that you said, I agree to. I think the only thing I would just add to that is you're down 3-0, and you're out 2 of your most offensive players. You have to add a scoring touch. You have to.
So. Well, it's true. Like, I didn't mind the way that Brad Malone played yesterday, but like, I don't exactly have any expectation for him to score whatsoever. Like, obviously it was great to have him in that game because we had to kill a 5-minute penalty. So we needed all hands on deck, and he can kill penalties, but like, I don't want to have to be in that situation. I'm not saying Holloway would have been the difference maker in last game, but I don't know if it could have helped or not. Yeah, I would say that would be the main change I would do for lineups in terms of like actual lineups. I would bring in Holloway in some regard, whether or not Kane gets suspended. I still would like to bring Holloway in.
Yeah, I think it might be time regardless. That's a good point.
What do we have to lose at the really?
Just the rest of the season, Sean. That's it, I guess.
Well, that's the point, though. It's not like we're up 3-1 and we're like, oh, let's toss them and let's give them a chance. It's like we're in desperation mode. Like, let's play like it. Like, even I want to see like a lineup that's more desperate in general. Like, I just need to see something. I need to see them like go into the next game and change something about their game. Because that's another quick fact I just wanted to throw out there. We've been outshot 47, 40, and then I think it was like 43 last night. Like, how are we giving up 40 plus goals 3 games in a row to the Colorado goddamn Avalanche and expecting to win a game?
Especially a team that's got a fairly decent back end that's shutting you down. Like,
well, exactly. When Edmonton's struggling to crack, I think they're less than 30 on average in this series. Like, I don't know. We need to figure something out. But we're just gonna keep sitting here, and everyone's gonna keep being like, "Oh, I don't know, we need to do this. Maybe we'll try this." Blah blah blah. But like, we can only do that for so long.
Yeah, we need to win tomorrow. We need to
Yeah,
win.
that bar
I
none. We need to
checked.
score more goals than the other team.
I was like, we need to win tomorrow, but for me, it's gonna be Tuesday. So,
Or
anyway,
are the games at like 3 a.m. for you then?
thank God, like last round would have been, but they start at 1, and so 1:30 puck drop, but still, like, uh, I don't care. I'm gonna nap during the afternoon. I'll watch all of them. So we'll jump into the plus minus before we wrap things up and on a few different thoughts with everything going on. Sean, I know you've got some really good, valuable plus minus this week, so I'm gonna jump into mine quickly. I'll start with the negative. It's just one of these things that I'm starting to see a trend of. I remember as a kid just watching TV, and it's probably because it was a swear that I thought it was so effective. But when especially in playoffs, when a bad call was made or something was missed, like you'd get the old bullshit chant, and it was fantastic to hear. It was like the only time my dad would allow me to swear is just when like this hockey game's going on and a bad call was missed, and you could chant that. And then it kind of like took on a life of its own earlier with social media pushing the "ref you suck" chants, and now it gets to a point where it's so tired. Like, it sounds like every single time that, like, you miss maybe a what if penalty. Like, Colorado's been the worst at it. Like, their fans will not shut up chanting "ref you suck." Like, every little play. It's like the boy who cried is it the boy that cried sheep? No, it's the sheep that cried wolf. That's
The boy
you
who
get what
cried
I'm
wolf.
saying. It's holy fuck. Gotta
The
need
sheep who cried wolf. That's great.
yeah.
I agree with
Yeah.
you though. Like I said it before. Like Colorado has been first in power plays drawn for 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
They're leading 12-6, excluding the 5-minute major in this series. So I don't want to fucking hear it. You can't sit there and be on the power play all fucking game. Like, we're chanting it in Edmonton because we've had 2 per game on average. Well, you've had almost 5. So that's why it seems fucking absurd. And you're sitting there like, I think it was the first period of game 2. They just had 3 power plays. And then they're sitting there chanting "refs, you suck." I'm just like, what the fuck is your problem?
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I got. I'm clearly mixing up. It's too late now, so I'm just going to try to limit my words as much as possible. Sean, your minus.
My minus, I know it may be fairly controversial because everybody loves Woodcroft, but my minus is Jay Woodcroft's minute management of defensemen. And I think this comes back to the point I was trying to make with Darnell Nurse that I was trying to say for now, which is that he's injured. Everybody knows that. He's making physical and mental mistakes because he can't keep up, or his brain isn't just keeping up because maybe he's too focused on his injuries. And ultimately, he's being, I think, still overplayed for how much he is actually capable of bringing, especially against the top players of the team. One of the things that made me very upset last night was looking at the time on ice sheet afterwards and seeing that Nurse, even though we're running 7 defensemen, still is playing 22 minutes a night and leading our defensemen in time on ice. I was like, isn't the whole point of running 11 and 7? We have 7 defensemen, so then we can limit Nurse's minutes to some degree in certain situations so he can stay fresher and be playing better. And yet here we all are watching Nurse still playing the same amount of minutes he has. Like, you could sit here and be like, oh yeah, he's injured because he's not playing like 25 to 30 minutes a night like he has been in the past because that's the way Tippett was playing him. But I think he's still playing more than he's capable of because of his injury. So that is my big minus, is that I don't understand what Woodcroft is doing with that, because it seems like everybody that I've heard, whether it's media or fans or anything like that, everybody feels the same way, that Nurse is playing too much for what he's capable of bringing right now. And somehow the coaching staff is sitting there and being like, am I the one who's wrong? No, it's the kids who are wrong.
Yeah. I would extend that too, because I don't think Dave Manson is exempt from that either. I don't, like, obviously I'm not on the bench, but I know that the head coach doesn't always run the lines, but obviously Woodcroft has some sort of formula for coming up with the 11 and 7, regardless of team management standpoint, I'm with you. Like, how do you play an injured guy that much and, expect, like, what's the point of dressing 7 defensemen then? Especially when you're getting outscored and outshot. Like,
Well, clearly, to me,
I don't know.
that's a defensive issue, is if we're getting outshot like that. And yet, like, it's the definition of insanity. We just keep doing the same shit over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Like, I don't
Mhm.
understand why we're not changing anything. This is the 3rd game in a row where we've essentially ran the same pairings. They played the same time on ice. And we're like, oh, what's the problem? I don't understand. Why didn't it change? We added an extra defenseman who we played for like 8 minutes and reduced our best defenseman's minutes in Kulak and think that things are going to change.
Yeah.
And I say
I was
best
gonna add the
defenseman
caveat.
in terms of he's the healthiest and playing the best right now, not that he is our best defenseman all the time.
Yeah, I don't think that's up for much debate. I was gonna add the caveat that they're getting outshot and whatever, maybe because they don't have enough forwards. But I mean, they didn't run 11-7 for game 1 and 2, so I mean, I guess that point's moot. Yeah, I everyone, I feel like that should just be like, if we were to have a title for this episode, it'd just be like, I don't know. But
Well, I think that's kind of where
I'll
everybody's at. It feels like we've tried a million different things and nothing's working. And we're like, what do we do? We're just smashing our heads on the wall trying to figure out what we need to do. And I'm hoping Woodcroft and the team figure that out tonight
yeah,
and come into tomorrow and be like, okay, let's fucking do this.
yeah, I would agree. My plus of the week, um, we're not. I find what they're doing is hilarious. We're not in, like, I wouldn't consider them like a competitive thing, because it's spit and chicklets. They cover the entire league. But what they brought to Edmonton, I think, putting them back on the map. Obviously, you have Ryan Whitney, who, poor guy, broke through the mud his entire career in Edmonton. I love the guy, but I can definitely understand why people were frustrated with him towards the end of his career and everything. And Edmonton always gets bashed for being like just a shithole where nobody wants to be and it's not fun. And they come into Edmonton, they bring the whole Spit and Chicklets crew, they bring TNT with them, all because of this stupid bet for Bissonnette. And I think it surprised a lot of people, and I'm not even just talking about the guys that showed up there. I think a lot of people realized how much of a hockey town Edmonton is and how much this city loves their team. And so my plus for the week is just those guys on the Spit and Chicklets podcast, just for kind of giving Edmonton a chance and giving them a little bit of a plug to the rest of the NHL and all the fans that follow.
Well, I agree. Like, I think what I don't necessarily love their podcast. I've listened to it a lot when it first came out, but it started to get a little bit old for me. But
Yeah.
I think their personalities are exactly what hockey needs in general.
Mm.
Like, everything they bring to the table is fun. And that's what hockey lacks a lot of. Hockey almost feels like golf sometimes, where it's like, we have a specific set of rules. If you know wearing shorts on the PGA Tour kind of bullshit. And like, those guys kind of break the mold, where it's like Biz is getting his head shaved into a cul-de-sac in the middle of the concourse, and then has to go live on TNT with that right afterwards. Like, that's the kind of shit that's fun. And I think that's what people take away once it gets to professional hockey. I think hockey's supposed to be fun, like junior hockey and everything. Those guys have fun out there. Like, they're not just your teammates. There's almost like your brothers when you're playing. And like, I like to see more of that come out of the locker room and kind of out more for people to see, and the fun that comes along with it.
Couldn't have said it better.
So I have my plus also, and that is Ryan Mcleod. I loved him at the beginning of the playoffs. He didn't have a great first 2 series, but I think far and away he has been Edmonton's best player in this round. Like, maybe Smith has played well, but I think Ryan Mcleod has been fantastic, especially in a third line role. He's been killing penalties. He scored some timely goals. He scored the tying goal in this one. He scored a goal in the first game as well. That third line of Fogle, Puljujarvi, and Mcleod has had some fantastic chances and have been, honestly, like, I don't know if it's controversial to say it, but I think it's been Edmonton's best line in the series as well. Maybe because they're not playing against they're not playing against Makar and Taves. Maybe that's why they're playing so well, but that's what you need from your depth. So, and I think Mcleod, yeah, exactly. They come out every shift and they're playing extremely well. Like they generally speaking, they get possession and get at least a chance out of it. They're not hemmed in their zone. So ultimately, yeah, Ryan Mcleod, love him. I think that's the biggest bright spot so far from these playoffs and what playing your rookies in high pressure situations can bring. Like sometimes they make mistakes like Bouchard has a few times, but Bouchard has also had some fantastic moments too. And then Mcleod, he's been fantastic. And I'm really tired of the old adage of people not wanting to play rookies because they're rookies. Like give them a chance. Look at how Makar played that 1 year he came in for Colorado and played fantastic. I'm not saying everybody's going to be Makar, but I feel like there's more positive stories about rookies coming in and playing a nice role for a team in a playoff run than there are negative stories.
Look at the fucking New York Rangers.
Well, exactly. They have their kid line popping off because they're giving them a chance to play.
Yeah. I couldn't. I love what Ryan Mcleod has brought to this team, and I think it extends past him. I think the Oilers for such a long time had this, reputation for rushing people like out of the draft into their NHL club, and people just spiraling out. That's why I really hate the are the Oilers wasting Connor McDavid's future? I don't think a lot of people spend a lot of time to look at the back end work that the Oilers farm system has done. When you look, you've got Yamamoto, you've got Ryan Mcleod, you've got Evan Bouchard. Now you've got Broberg coming up, Holloway coming up, Niemelainen coming up. Like they have done an extremely, extremely good job of bringing up these rookies and developing them. And to your point, are we coming to a point where these people might start getting shots?
Well, we gave Benson a shot this year and he struggled to make an impact, but I think they watched him struggle for some reason and now they've been hesitant. This is part of the reason why I was excited for Woodcroft is that he might give younger players more of a role on the team. And I will say he's given the younger players on the roster more of a role, but I was expecting more roster movement as well to give players like even Broberg or Niemelainen a chance on defense in these games, whether they're the seventh defenseman last game or something. I don't know if they make a difference, or bringing Holloway in and giving him a chance to play on the fourth line with Cassian with the 11 and 7. So they get shifts with McDavid or Draisaitl or Mcleod or Nuge or something, whoever they're deciding to double shift that shift. I want to see it. Maybe now is not the best time because obviously it's the playoffs. We're going into game 4. It's an elimination game, but I don't know. I just want to see it.
Well, and to your point too, I think with what we've seen with Woodcroft's ability to deal with the rookies on the team, I think, and we can do a lot of talking about this over the next couple months, but I think it's time. I don't care, Mr. Holland. I think it's time you start handing a little bit more of the keys over to your coaching staff to make those decisions. Because I truly believe that that's part of the reason that you're not seeing guys like Holloway coming up mid-year or et cetera, because it does have to go through the GM.
Well, he's probably sitting there thinking I don't want to burn the first year of this guy's entry-level contract.
Yeah. No, I love the effort and performance that Ryan Mcleod and, to your point, his line have brought over this series. So, yeah.
I just want to add a nice bookend to this whole podcast today. And that
Fantastic.
is that everything we're talking about today is moot because we're going to come back and we're going to win in 7 games against Colorado with Ryan Mcleod scoring the OT winner in game 7.
Keys to the city, pal. Here you go. Yeah, we're going to be here talking next Sunday. And it's going to be a whole different attitude.
I mean, isn't next Sunday game 7? I believe that's how it would go. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday.
Sean, I don't know what today is.
Well, it's probably coming up on midnight, so who knows what day it is there right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to call it quits. I need to get some sleep. But in that sleep, I'm going to prepare for tomorrow. And whatever comes is whatever was meant to be. I've really got nothing else to add, man.
I think we've kind of beat this dead horse to death at this point. More so, he's lying in the next life, being like, "Stop fucking hitting me." So I think with everything being said, we should just write it off here and say what everybody wants to hear, and that's "Let's go Oilers."
Woo!